channel. Sisters in Crime Upstate South Carolina chapter now has a YouTube channel, and I'm going to be posting the recordings of our mystery book club on the YouTube channel for viewers who can't make the meetings, or if you would like to take a look at it again afterwards. So again, without further ado, let me turn this over to Mary Beth McGee, operator for this quarter.
Great. Thank you so much, Sally. I'm so honored to have this opportunity to introduce you ladies to some of my favorite authors, which is always great fun. When I came home to Mississippi, I'm originally from New Orleans, lived a while in Illinois, lived a while in California, but now I'm home in the South. And when I originally got home, I connected with a group in Ponchatoula, Louisiana, the Creative Minds Writers Group, and one of their authors was having a book signing in New Orleans. So wanting to support my fellow author, I trooped into New Orleans to go to this book signing. And of course, in hopes of making a connection with the owner to possibly get a signing there, that would have worked too. But while I was there, I met this lady who does Schnauzer rescue. I love Schnauzers. I love them. I had a miniature Schnauzer, and that was the smartest dog that I ever had. And Judy, I saw your puppy in the meeting the other night. Yeah, that was cute. And Colleen, just so you know, I actually told Judy she needs to be here today because you do Schnauzer rescue.
Yeah.
When I saw her puppies. So I met Colleen then, and even though she wasn't the author I was going to support, I ended up falling in love with her work and loving her as a human being. She's just a great lady and has been amazing. When she decided to try to start a New Orleans chapter of Sisters in Crime, she invited me to join, and I did, because of course I had been a member of Sisters in Crime National for a long time. I heard about them while I was out in California, and Cindy Sample got me involved there. I didn't affiliate because I was taking care of my sick mother, but I did affiliate with National. And so now the opportunity to belong to a chapter was wonderful. Colleen and I got to work together on a lot of stuff then. and as we were talking the other night, we kind of been through the mill together on this, but here we are. Introducing her to a whole nother state. I hope that she will be someone that will be a new author to you. If not, that's great. If you already knew her work, you are so fortunate to know it. But if you didn't, you're going to love it. I asked her to do her first book today because the name of it, Rescued by a Kiss, starts off talking about the Schnauzer rescue, but also it takes place during Mardi Gras. And Mardi Gras started 3 days ago. What is today? Today's the 10th?
11.
Oh my goodness, I lost a day. It started on January 6th.
Wow.
And will run through February 21st. The Mardi Gras season will. And her story starts with a parade. How can you go wrong if it starts with a parade? Colleen is a native New Orleanian, and she's kind of been all over the place too, but she's back home in New Orleans now, where I'm about an hour away in Mississippi. I don't want to take up too much of her time talking about it, but just know that her characters, the locale, her events all struck chords with me as a native. She got it so on the beam. And so I hope that you will enjoy this virtual trip to New Orleans and to Mardi Gras as I introduce my friend Colleen Mooney.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth, for inviting me to this, and you too, Sally. What?
I just thought of something. I forgot to tell them. In the chat is Colleen's email address. She has very graciously offered to, if you send her an email and sign up for her newsletter, she will enter you in a drawing for a copy of one of her books. So please take advantage of that. Okay, sorry, Colleen, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much for asking me to do this, and you too, Sally, to your chapter. I'm just kind of delighted to be here. So Mary Beth and I have gone back a long ways. I think about 2014, because that was right about when I finished this first book.
Yeah.
And when we met, we've come out the other side pretty much intact, though, Mary Beth, for all we've been through. So I would just like to ask, how many of you have read my book, the first one, which is Rescued by a Kiss? 1, 2, 3.
I have.
Oh, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, this lady and right into Mary Beth is muted, I think.
Judy?
Oh, y'all have? Good. Well, that's good. So, I'll let y'all ask as many questions as you'd like. Yes, Mary Beth's right. It is Mardi Gras. We've started the tacky season here in New Orleans, which just goes from one tacky season to another. So, the parades haven't. Well, actually, the parades did start. The parade started January 6th, which is the Feast of the Epiphany. Everything with Mardi Gras is tied to the religious calendar. We back up Mardi Gras Day. It's never the same day every year. It backs up from Lent, when Lent starts. So the Tuesday before Lent is officially Mardi Gras Day, and then it's backing up 6 weeks, sometimes 4 to 5. It depends on when Lent, when Ash Wednesday is, because that moves around too. So the parade season can last 2.5, 3 weeks to probably 5 weeks. And it starts out real slow, maybe one every weekend, somebody has a parade. Well, on the 6th, up St. Charles Avenue, the Funny 40 Fellows kick off Mardi Gras. And it's a club of men and women, and they ride in silly costumes on the streetcar. It's not really a parade, but they ride up and down, starting the funny, fun festival season, and everything's with a PH. The Funny 40 Fellows are PHUNNY, PHORTY, PHELLOWS. So everything to them is fun. And, of course, Mardi Gras' big motto is if ever I cease to love. So most things, if they're not satirical, they're along the lines of fun, novelty, kind of not romance, but just nice stuff. So, but we have our share of the other end of the spectrum with political and just, it goes from super nice little parades for kids are in, all the way up to stuff that is satirical through the French Quarter with nudity and everything else involved. So depending on what you like in the way of entertainment, it's there. So does anybody have a question?
I would like to say that I am into your third book. I've read the first one like a couple weeks ago for this. And then I was laughing out loud. And so I just wanted to tell you, and I totally relate because my son got his PhD at LSU. And so I'm very familiar with your area because I was down there a lot. But thank you for writing these wonderful books.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, that's a wonderful recommendation. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, all the stuff. And let me just say this. When I published the first one myself, I'm self-pubbed. I didn't have any intention of writing a second book till I got to the end of this one. And then it just kind of flowed into the second one. And then it kind of flowed into the third one. And I have 9 in the series. I'm on 10. I took a little hiatus due to health issues. I had a lot of hip problems and surgeries, but I'm on the mend and I'm getting back to book 10 now. So I'm born and raised here. I worked for AT&T most of my life, and since I'm from here, I started here, and then we moved to Alabama, which I wasn't crazy about because there was nothing to do there. It's so different than here. So back, and I'm an LSU fan, so being a Alabama fan just wasn't in the cards. So back to New Orleans, the first chance I got, I transferred. And every week, that took a year, but every weekend I would drive home to New Orleans, or on the way back to Birmingham, I cried the whole way. So I wound up back in New Orleans. Then lo and behold, another big giant resizing, downsizing, moving people around at AT&T. And I wound up in New Jersey and New York, which I did not mind. New York, New Jersey, not so much, but it was still fun. And there was still a lot to do there. So every weekend they had a festival somewhere, or just a lot more entertainment, a lot more cultural diversity. So I just loved it. And then everybody that I was with in Manhattan just was so enraptured of Mardi Gras and me and somebody who actually lived there to tell about it. So they were always asking me questions. And in addition to that, I'd go out to order stuff. And when I ordered things, people would go, "Miss, we have no idea what you're talking about." Like I ordered a sandwich, lettuce. I ordered a turkey dressed. And the man says, "Miss, I have no idea what you're talking about." I said, "Really? That means lettuce and tomato." With turkey with lettuce and tomato. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that. And even when they spoke to me, I didn't quite get it all either. Like, where was coffee sold? Downstairs in the mall. The what? The mall. The mall. So that's when I realized there was such a wide schism between me and my New Orleans life, how I grew up, and how everybody else I met was. It was so I started writing, or had the concept of that book way back. And then I finally did it in 2014. I finally had the time and just started writing it. And I just had a good time with it. I've had a few comments and reviews that one man said, all this stuff is so preposterous. None of this can happen anywhere.
It can. Yes.
Yes. So here's how I write. I've had experiences myself in almost every scenario in this first book, in almost every book, actually, or a friend of mine has related it to me. So I don't make them up. I exaggerate them for amusement, but I don't even have to exaggerate them way too much. And some of the characters are people I've known and worked with and actually changed their names. And some of them, I didn't even have to embellish their personalities. In the first book, Julia, which Miss, what's your name that said you read mine and you're into 3?
That's
Linda
Linda.
Robertson. Linda
hi.
Robertson. Yes.
Linda. So Julia is her BFF kind of person that she worked with. And Julia is a little bit out there. That's the thing in New Orleans. You can meet quirky. Quirky's the norm. I mean, everywhere else, normal would be odd, but here quirky is the normal. So
Yes.
Julia in the book, when she was let go, the real Julia from South Central Bell, AT&T, where we all worked, she had to look for other means to support herself. And so she did a lot of stuff questionable, that in my opinion, but she finally got out of that phase of working in the strip clubs. But she also had tons of good stories. And the other thing I do about stories is my husband and I will go sit somewhere for a cocktail, and I always ask the bartender, "What's the funniest thing that's happened to you?" And some of that stuff makes its way into my books. So my stuff is based on fact. I change all the names and situations so I'm not sued by somebody. But I did have one attorney who's a writer, and he said, if somebody says, "Oh, you wrote about me in that book," say, "Do you want me to prove it or not? Because if it's not flattering, why would they want you to prove it?" So he said that, he gets off when he uses characters that he knows in his books. So the other thing about New Orleans is most people are sort of enamored of it. They all want to come visit. There's a ton of things to do here. In addition to just Mardi Gras, the whole year has festivals. We have a tomato festival. We have a sauce pecan festival. We have crawfish festival. We have everything you can name a festival. And they're fun. I went to all of them when I was younger. So I base a lot of my story from when I was very youthful, going to more fun things every weekend, sometimes on the back of a motorcycle, until the boyfriend du jour wouldn't teach me how to drive his motorcycle. So I bought my own. So I've always been a little bit of a rebel maybe, or just different. I'm as different here as everybody else is different. So based on that, I wanted to just mention, I tell you where I worked with AT&T and parades. The reason, and I love parades. I haven't met a parade I didn't like. I started off in parades when I was 6 years old in a brand, and the little Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, and we would march in little kiddie type parades in the neighborhood and stuff. And I always got to hold the American flag. That was the honor of a lifetime when you're 6. So from there, into grammar school and then high school, I was on the dance team and we marched in parades on, a little baton dance team, like a flag on a baton, not really twirling. So, and then into college, I was on another dance team, no baton, but that was fun. And then I started joining crews when I was out of college and working for AT&T and had a little discretionary income. So, it's not inexpensive to join Mardi Gras crews. Some are much more expensive than others. So, so what I wanted to tell you is I started out in the crew of Tux, which was a TKE at the universities, an all-guy frat house, and they started that crew, the crew of Tux, because there was a bar named Tux, and that's where they all sort of hung out. So that's where the parade started and ended. It developed over the years to be more co-ed, and while they were still very irreverent of all things traditionally Mardi Gras, like kings and queens, their king sat on a throne, but it was a toilet, and their scepter was a plunger. And I have one of their fun little things they would throw. I was in this crew. So their sunglasses, toilet seats, and you flip them up to see the crew of Buckeyes.
Yes.
So, yeah, so you can see how irreverent that group is. Then I joined with a girlfriend, the crew of Iris. It was all women. And they were much more stuffy. It was the other end of the spectrum. But so Tux is kind of the collegiate, group that wants to make fun of any traditional Mardi Gras clubs have a king or a queen, and it's a lot of fanfare. They have a big ball you get invited to. You need to be invited, you just can't go. And then they have some super crews as they get closer to Mardi Gras Day. And those have big elaborate balls, usually in the Superdome or the convention center with big bands, and it's and then the whole parade rides into the Superdome and they get off the float in there and just party with friends. I've been in a couple of those crews, Orpheus, co-ed, much higher end than Tux is one end, Orpheus is the other end, but nice, co-ed, because most of the traditional ones are all men. They have not come and have been enlightened enough to let women in their crews. So
Interesting.
to be in there. They were co-ed and they were fun. Let's see, I was in Irish, Tux, Orpheus. Oh, one of my fun crews I've been in, and I'm going to rejoin this year. We all kind of had a setback with COVID and then me with the hip surgeries. So the crew of Cork. I was also a Corkette, which was part of the dance team. And, here are 50 and 60-year-old women in a dance team for the crew of Cork, but it's a whole lot of fun. And we march around the French Quarter and wind up at the Royal Sinestro for a party with a band and music. It's a lot of fun, and it's more social than anything else because every month the crew of Cork has a luncheon and a wine is featured, and it's just in a nice restaurant. So we all get to be to socialize more. It's a more high-end, small club. So I would suggest, I know some of the crews even online are starting to they sell or they let you participate in a ride if you want. So if you're ever interested, always email me. I know a lot of stuff about Mardi Gras. I'd be happy to point you in a direction or answer a question. And if I don't know it, I can find it out. So based on all that, if I was going to read a portion of my book, if y'all would like that, or if you have questions right now about Mardi Gras, my writing, or anything.
Well,
Can I ask?
go ahead, Linda.
Thank
go
you,
next.
Sally. Would you tell us a little bit? Some of the people may not know the story of the men with the canes and giving the flower and the kiss. That's a very long tradition. That was the basis of your first book, correct?
That is correct. So I'll let you all, it's a small group, and y'all have been nice to invite me, and most of you have read my book. So I'm gonna let you in little secrets about the stories. I don't usually say that because somebody told me, oh, none of this stuff could happen to people. Well, it does happen to people, and a lot of it happened to me, as I said. So the story with this man and the kiss happened to me. Now I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you where the story with me ended, but right now I'm going to tell you how I wrote it in the book. And pretty much it's all there except the last part, and I'll tell you that. So Julia and Brandy Alexander is my main character, and I actually knew a Brandy Alexander. So I thought, what a great New Orleans name. So Brandy Alexander and her friends are going to the first parade, the big parade of the season. So they walk from her Camp Street house. I used to live on Camp Street, up to Lee Circle. I've been there in Lee Circle. And the nice thing about Lee Circle is it's tiered. You go up the steps, so you can go stand on a high step and see the whole parade go by. And it's about 12 steps up maybe. So you're not right on the street level with everybody else scrambling for things. If you just want to see the parade, you can go up there. If you want to go scramble, you go out to the street. So, so the thing about the male marching clubs is it's a long-term tradition. It's gentlemen's walking clubs. Now, remember I said gentlemen. The gentlemen's marching clubs, they wear tuxedos, they look very nice. Now the parades are usually in the evening, but these guys have been getting tuned up since breakfast when they don't have a lot of cocktails to start the day. So the gentlemen's marching club can be rather rambunctious. They dress in tuxedos, they cane, a long cane, and they put paper flowers, like a little paper carnation on it. Some of them might have real flowers, but predominantly they're paper. So it's not like you're getting a big trade here. So what happens is they march, they're not on a float, they march independently as a group up the street between the floats or bands or whatever else is there. So they come along and they work the crowd on either side of the street. There's no one ever in the middle. They're right at the edge, street side or sidewalk side. So they can see a pretty girl. You want a flower? Got to give me a kiss. So that sometimes girl will give them the hand. Sometimes they'll kiss them on the lips. Sometimes they'll go, okay, here. It's just a fun thing, and it's all in fun, and nobody ever really takes it too far. It's because there's policemen in the street too, every few 100 feet. So it's a fun thing. And it starts out, these young girls want to see how many flowers they can get because then they think they're cute. So that's sort of the whole thing about the gentleman marching band and the flower kiss negotiation. So I'm standing, this is where Brandy and I are alike. I'm standing on the top step of Lee Circle. I see him come by, and there's one man standing in the middle of his group, in the middle of the street. He's not working the sides for a flower kiss negotiation. And Brandy and this man lock eyes. And so now that group is, the parade stops every now and then and catch up with itself, blah, blah, blah. So they're stopped right there. And when their eyes lock, she just starts walking into the street to meet him. So when she gets up to him, they have this hot kiss where her knee bends up and he doesn't say a word. He's got a few little flowers in his hand he had been holding. No cane, no millions of flowers. So after the kiss ends, he whispers in her ear, meet me at the end of the parade. And now the police are coming along because the parade's moving, and they're saying, come on, miss, you got to get behind the curb, move it along, come on, lover boy, So she kind of in a daze walks back up to where her friends are. And one of the friends, now we're strictly Brandy in the book, her friend asks, who was that? She goes, I have no idea. And her other friend says, you look like your boyfriend, Dante the cop, just hit you with his stun gun. So in the book, She and Julia go to the end of the parade to meet him, to find him. I never did. And I really, to this day, wish I had. He was a very good looking fella. We never said a word. He kissed me. He gave me a whole handful of flowers. I went back to my friends, and he went on to march in the parade. That was the end of my encounter. But in my mind, I always wondered what would have happened if I had gone to the end of that parade to meet him. So that's where the book comes in. So at the end of the parade, just so you know, it's bedlam. You know, everybody used to end up at Municipal Auditorium. The smaller parades still end up there or somewhere else. And so every float is usually about 20, have maybe 30 to 40 riders. Then you've got bands between the floats. Then you got the marching clubs. Then you have the motorcycle escorts. Then you have the mounted police or cowboys riding horses. I mean, there's another whole bunch of those kind of people. So it's a—
Don't forget the Shriners.
the shrine. Oh no, my grandfather was a Shriner in the parades when I was little. He rode a motorcycle. Yeah, the Shriners are the motorcycle escorts for the beginning of the parade. So when you hear them, you know it's here. It's about like going to be here.
And the thing is, Shriners have beads.
Oh yeah,
You
Shriners.
have to hug a Shriner to get these beads. I collect
Everybody has
many a
something.
set of pearls from Shriners.
Yes. So most
the
you
book
can see
is-
why this is so important to the men, because they work the women with these little cheap throws that everyone thinks is like, you know, diamonds and pearls rather than just glass and plastic or paper. So-
The setting in your book is so very important. I mean, it's the heart and soul, obviously, even of this discussion, you know, and one of the things that fascinated me, most of us, several of us are in South Carolina. And I found when I moved here, when you meet people, they ask you, what church do you belong to? In South Carolina or in New Orleans, they ask you what high school you went to. And
Sure.
I found that an interesting tidbit. You want to explain to us about that?
Yes, in fact, that's in my books, almost all of them. Because here, you know, they don't want to know it, because my husband said, why do y'all, ask what school you went to and it's not the college? I said, because most places, what school did you go to? They mentioned a college, LSU, or whatever. Here, it's high school, because tells the person you met a bunch of stuff you don't need any more questions answered on, like what part of the city did you grow up in, who you might know who went to that school, and you can kind of then say, oh, well, did you know Mary Beth? Because I'm in Poplarville and we went to Poplarville High, and and here it's a lot of Catholic high schools. There's a few public schools and very few any other type of private or religious type schools. It's predominantly Catholic schools here. And for the
I just have to say, Colleen, you got New Orleans right. I went to one of those Catholic schools, and that is the truth. That is how you meet people. And what high school did you go
Which
to?
one, Helen?
St. Joseph Academy.
Oh, St. Joseph, my mother went there.
Yes. But I have to tell you, I started making a list of everything you got right
Oh,
about
thank
the
you.
city. I mean, you even talked about the Camellia Grill, if I'm not mistaken, and where the streets meet. And I thought, oh my gosh, this woman knows this. So you got that right. All those little oddities about the city that people love, you got all those things right. The walking groups and all that.
I
Wonderful.
write from personal experience, like the.
No, it was good to read it done correctly.
Thank you.
As a moderator, my question for all of you ladies is, has your opinion of New Orleans changed since you read the book? And if so, how?
I have been to New Orleans and I love it. I loved it. And I was there the month before Katrina. And my sister and I were there. I was for a marketing conference. And we just had the loveliest time. I mean, we really loved it. And when we came back and found out that, Katrina was being predicted, we were just horrified as that all unfolded. But I don't think that my opinion has changed. But it's like, the Bourbon Street, and we got to the scene where she goes into the gay nightclub, I thought, oh my God, that is so, that is so funny. And then you've got this straight guy pretending to be gay who's the dancer. It was just hysterically funny. So I don't think my opinion of New Orleans changed. I think it only got deepened. My feelings for it got deepened. I definitely want to go back.
Oh, good.
I think we need a field trip.
Everyone. There's something here from everyone for fun and just not wholesome, but a little bit risque, or to the fully decadent. And most of the people who come here, luckily, experience the fun, risque, maybe a little bit of stuff. That's what
When I watched the movie Burlesque with Cher and Christina Aguilera, it reminded me so much of New Orleans, because it's like that little bit naughty, pretending to be awful, but just a little risque,
Yeah. That's kind of like
Suggestive.
I like to tap into that part. But you mentioned the gay clubs. When I was in high school, my sister's only 2 years younger than me. My sister and I had a date. We would go down to the French Quarter and go to the gay clubs to dance, because they were great dancers. No, we didn't have to worry about anybody hitting on us. And then we, are following us home. It was great. We would dance all night and have a blast. And then, we did that for years. And I guess I'm seeing the look on y'all's faces now, wondering, this woman is a crackpot. So,
No, it sounds fun.
it was fun. Back then, that was mostly the 80s, the late 70s, 80s. It was a whole lot safer everywhere here than it is today, which is to say that across the country. It's not just New Orleans, but, we have our share of problems, but we still have a lot of fun things to do here. And I'll also make that invitation, if you all plan on coming here, I'd love to meet you up with you somewhere at a fun place. Or if you just want to ask me some questions for recommendations, I'm happy to do that too. So what else was I going to tell y'all?
Well, I was going to tell you that previous to this, I really had no interest in New Orleans at all. I mean, just none. And I'm like, okay, the story takes place in New Orleans. And then I'm reading it, and I am like, one of your reviewers where I'm like, this is impossible. And I'm thinking, now, wait a minute, I've heard a lot of things about New Orleans, so maybe just go with it. So that was fun. And then I have to say, by the end of the book, I'm like, okay, New Orleans, I have a new attitude toward this city. So it was fun. It was very fun that way.
Well, I'm glad, because I think, people are either, oh, yes, we love New Orleans, or I don't ever want to go there. It just sounds too seedy and, gross or whatever, decadent. Like I said, it's one end of the spectrum. There's a whole lot of other stuff here. And growing up here, I mean, I really didn't go down to the French Quarter until I was probably in college. College, because the parades used to go through the French Quarter. My parents weren't going to drive us down there to see them. So, a date would take us and we'd go stand in the French Quarter. And that's when I first started getting the feel for it. I lived out in the suburb, and then when I was old enough, I did move into the city, Orleans proper. So I did want to ask
you.
y'all.
Go to these parades, the Mardi Gras parades, when you were growing up?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
You did not go to the Mardi Gras parades growing up, not till you were in high school, or?
Oh no, I started in parades. It may not have been a Mardi Gras parade. It was a Girl Scout parade when I was 6. No, I went to parades. I love a parade. I go to every parade there was. And if you had a date to a parade, the boys would hold the girls on their shoulder, similar to like today, and then you had a better chance of catching something. And now we hold our little niece and nephews on our shoulder for more chance of catching stuff. So like some of the stuff we catch, the Go Cups. Is part, my books are all part of the Go Cup series. You can't go anywhere in New Orleans without probably needing a Go Cup. Now, the way we get around that here, because there's open container laws everywhere else on the planet. When I moved to New Jersey, I was in a bar and I asked the man when I was getting ready to leave, and I still had half my drink. I said, hey, can I get a Go Cup? He goes, where are you from, lady? I said, what makes you think I'm not from here? I know you're not from here. So somebody then enlightened me that there things called the open container law in which you can be arrested elsewhere. So here, I think it finally dribbled down to the South. And if you're driving and you have a drink, that's considered an open container. Okay, let me tell you how to get around that. But if you're just walking around, you can have an open container and be drinking. I mean, in the French Quarter, they sell these huge plastic cups of beer, and they're called big ass beers. And I guarantee you, it's maybe like the size of a pitcher in a plastic cup. That's how big the cup is. So here we have drive-through daiquiri shops. Now most people in the country go, what? What is that? So you drive through, you make your order, and there's tons of things. You know, they have pina coladas, they have rum on the beach or whatever. They have every kind of flavor you could want. So you get your daiquiri in a plastic cup with a lid and that little X cut in it, and they hand you the straw. Closed container, no problem. As soon as you put the straw in, open container. So, you know, it's up to you to make it an open container. So the daiquiri place is not selling booze in an open container. That's how we get around it here.
Wow.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
to give you guys a hint, Cindy Sample from California came in for a conference several years ago. And I was taking her around, and she said, well, the one thing I heard about these drive-through daiquiri places. I never heard of such a thing till I read about them here. Can we go to one? Oh my goodness. That poor attendant in the window got bombarded with so many questions, and he had such a good time. He gave her an extra daiquiri for free.
That's righteous.
Wow. Did they have
I mean, it was
food?
hysterical. You know, I was driving, so I didn't have one, but it was just,
You could have had one, but you didn't put the straw in it until you got out the car.
oh, well, you
That's
know,
how it works. Okay.
I'm a little on the hidebound side. What can
I
I
know.
say?
I know.
Go by the rules. Go by the rules.
So the king cake party, I was going to ask Linda, did you have anybody have any questions about the king cake party?
No, that I
Just
heard
like,
about.
just
Wait,
like I remember them.
Okay. So I collect the king cake babies. I've got like a big old plastic thing full of king cake babies. For all of you who don't know, this is a king cake baby. It's a
Mhm.
little plastic thing, and then if you get that in your piece, you have to give the next king cake. Well, then, of course, years ago when I was growing up, this was the king cake baby, a little porcelain doll. Can you imagine if you've been into that? So that's, I think, when they went to plastic. So now you can order a king cake if you want, and they'll deliver it to you. And if we had met in person, I would have definitely had one for y'all. Haydell's sends them, Haydels, Haydell's Bakery. I'll just put it here so in case you're wanting to know later. They ship them anywhere. And also Randaz's. These are my favorite. They'll ship. I have to say, Haydell's might be my first favorite because they started, excuse me. I'm just getting over the flu or something, and my throat's always kind of scratchy. So Haydell started this little thing, which of course just had me all excited. They put a little character in every king cake. Every year it's a new character. So this one here is the beignet waiter. When you go to one like Cafe Du Monde or one of them, then they have the little, another year, I have all of them, like since when they started. This little guy is the hot dog vendor from the Lucky Dog carts. If you're down here, there's the Lucky Dog, that's another whole story. And then here's the ladies who go to the balls, who dress up in the long dresses for at the end of the parade or whenever they have their ball. So that's kind of a fun thing we do here that, you know, it kind of continues the party. Somebody starts it and then somebody gets you invite your friends over, they get the little doll and they have another party next week. So that's how actually in New Orleans, those are the first boy-girl parties we go to. We get invited to a king cake party, you know, in 7th or 8th grade. I mean, they may be starting them sooner now, but I guess we were bloomer, so we didn't start till 7th grade. And my mother deliberated for like a week to decide if I should go with those boys from the same class. So you know, and they would have a little dancing with it, but it was all innocent stuff. And usually the parents were there. So the next week, another friend of yours from school would have the next party. So it just kind of helped you introduce to a social encounters with boys. It was cute.
The episode in which Brandy relates that she went to a king cake party and her mother told her, don't, if you get the baby, don't eat it, swallow it, because she didn't want to have the party, brings me to wanting to discuss these characters a little bit. Ellis Vidler normally joins us and sent me a note via email saying she wasn't going to be able to make it. And I want you to read, I want to read you her comment. She said, in case I don't get back, the book was good, very strange and quirky characters. The mother should be charged with child abuse. That Roach thing, she's not a nice person. I like the dogs and the lawyer with the duck suit. So yeah, Brandy's mother is really not a very likable character whatsoever. How does anybody else feel about that?
That's right. You can say it was my mother. She's the one who told me to swallow the doll.
All this time I thought you were doing my mother.
No, well, mother, she had the same mother I had. She didn't want us to go. Then she didn't want to have all these kids at our house. And then, it was back, I was born in the 50s. So I guess, they hadn't been too enlightened about child abuse and everything else that went along. But my very best friend, Terry, was since first grade. She's really not in the book because Terry and I had been monitored so closely by our parents whenever they were around, we never really got to do too much fun stuff. It was only when we got away from them. And I kind of embroil or include some of our more fun things in other characters that we do. Now, the Lord is the duck that dresses in the duck costume.
Yeah.
Here, everybody dresses in costumes all the time. In fact, when I go to a parade, I usually wear my hat. My little, see, it's a go cup. Sometimes I actually get a doubloon stuck in there. So it's kind of fun. Everybody wears hats, costumes, I have a whole closet full of costumes. It's not unusual for people that starting really little, they have little costumes for every time you go to a Mardi Gras or any kind of event sometimes says wear costumes. Halloween's big here too. So the Duck Man, he's a real person. I dated him in high school. He wasn't doing the duck thing anymore, but because he was like a 7th and 8th grade, maybe 9th grade, dressed in his duck costume. And he was really kind of helping. He was just a good deed doer, in his neighborhood. If people passed by, anybody sitting on the porch and they would throw water balloons at these old people, the Duck Man would come out and go get them garbage can covers, the metal kind. So in case they'd see those little kids coming with the balloons, they could hold up the garbage can cover. He was just a do-gooder.
Oh, that's funny.
Anything too outrageous. And he really didn't do it after about 9th grade. So everything about him in the book pretty much is made up, but based on the fact that he really did start out as Duckman. So
when you say Duckman costume, is he literally in a costume that looks like a duck?
He was in his idea of being Duckman, which is in the book. He had a baseball cap to cover his head so nobody could see his hair. He had a mask, kind of like one of these little masks, but probably just black. So he probably looked more like Zorro. He had a cape. So he,
okay. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
White shirt, the mask, a cap, and he kind of painted the cap like orange or for the duck bill, So he had the mask, he had the cape, white shirt or jeans and some tennis shoes. But his claim to help make him, fulfill his part was that he had a like a stick or a little baton or something, a little wooden, like a knife.
Okay, we got Colleen frozen.
Inst-
While we wait for
Rio's
her to
tired.
buffer, just a quick question for all of you. What bit of life advice would you give to Brandy Alexander?
I don't know. I could give Brandy any advice.
Wait, I saw Mary Beth froze. Did everybody else freeze?
No, you were
You
frozen.
were
Everybody else was fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did y'all leave off? Hat with duckbill, mask, cape.
Yeah, we got that.
And then he made this thing so he could swat at people if they were gonna charge him and hurt him. He had like a little baton, and out of rubber, like the inner tube of a tire, he cut like a foot of a duck. So that was stapled to the end. So that was his quacker. So if somebody annoyed him, he could hit them with that. And it stung like nothing else because it was hard rubber. So that's how he defended himself when people would say, "Hey, Duckman, come over here." So
Holly, Mary Beth asked us all if we had any advice for Brandy Alexander, life
Yeah.
advice for Brandy Alexander. And my advice is just move out for sure.
Well, one of the things I wanted to offer you gals, in your chapter, you can send it out to all of them. I made my first 3 books. They're bundled together, 1, 2, and 3, on Amazon free today for y'all. So if you would like books 1, 2, and 3, that's where they are. If you haven't read 2 or 3, they're in there. So,
Thank you.
well, I hope you like it, especially for anybody who hasn't read it yet. I had a lot of fun writing this, and a lot of it's maybe memory lane, for going down a walk down memory lane for me. But you know, when I look back at some of the crazy stuff we did, I'm so grateful that I lived to tell about it. You know? Oh,
You know,
gosh.
that's the truth. That's the truth. Did anybody else have advice for Brandy Alexander?
I like her the way she is.
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, my advice
I
would be don't
enjoy
change.
reading her escapades.
Well, we didn't talk too much about her boyfriend. I mean, she kisses the guy in the parade, and I guess you can see what's going to start happening. Her boyfriend is the guy who lives next door. She grows up next to 5 boys, and one of them is about her age. So he's now a cop. And so that's who her family and his family have grand plans for the wedding for those 2. It doesn't seem like the guy got the memo, the cop. So she's sort of in limbo with that relationship when this all starts with the parade kiss. And from there, it just sort of keeps going. But all those characters move forward. So
Good.
Oh, they're all in the
and
next.
some new ones dribble in.
Sally mentioned one of my favorite scenes, which is in the whole escapade with the gay bar. And I want to meet Chief so desperately because I think he's a gorgeous hunk and I want to watch him dance. But that whole sequence just to me was absolutely hysterical and so reminiscent of things that I've seen in the French Quarter that I could totally buy into the whole thing. Did any of the rest of you have a favorite scene in it that made you laugh out loud?
Yeah, I was definitely the gay bar scene too. I mean, that was hysterical.
Actually, I've been in that gay bar because my nail girl and worked in a salon, a beauty salon where I got my hair done and the nails. And the guys that were the hairdressers performed in that gay bar. So they invited us, the nail girl and I, to go see them one night. So I've been in there, and then they invited us upstairs where they all get changed and dressed. So I mean, I've been in that part of that bar, and it's just like it is in the book. Only Brandy got to wear the costume and, you know, got to be part of the escape from
Right.
from the kidnapping. So, but that bar is pretty interesting. And oddly enough, when I went in there with my nail girl friend, at that time I owned a Mrs. Fields in Canal Place. And so I'm standing there with my friend talking to my hairdresser putting on his Marilyn Monroe costume. And I hear somebody go, that's the lady who owns Mrs. Fields. I'm like, oh my God, somebody recognizes me in here. So it turned out it was somebody who worked in Saks, who was a performer there along with my hairdresser. So after that, we were all big buddies. My canal place.
I mean, that scene is really a knockout, a standout, because it's funny, but also the fact that everybody comes to help her. Like, they don't ask any questions. They're completely accepting of the situation. But it's also a pivotal scene because this is the moment when she realizes that Dante may be gay.
Ooh.
And that's why their relationship hasn't moved anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's a really important scene in the book, I thought.
Thank you. Yeah, that was
one thing that I appreciated a book is that there are no throwaway scenes. Every
No.
one of them is an important part of the story.
Well, as I was writing that, and I put that scene in there like that, that was when I got the epiphany for book 2. So that's how it sort of just kept going.
Oh, interesting.
And
So
as an author, I also just appreciated the ending where you didn't create the scene with a confrontation between her and Dante. You just wrote it like, okay, I'm moving out and that's it. And you just know there's another book coming.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I kind of wanted it that way. I don't like writing some ultimatum at the end. I'd like it to be happily ever after, even though it's sort of a mystery and kind of cozy, nicer. I'm sure that this doesn't fit check all the boxes for being cozy with some of my scenes, but I think it's more cozy than hard boil for sure. So I just think I'm starting to call them all mysteries instead of one particular genre. It's just in mystery.
Mhm.
Anybody going to Malice Domestic, the conference for cozy mysteries in Bethesda in May? Because they asked the question when you register for the conference as an author, what questions you would like to see answered at the conference. And mine is, what changes are we seeing in the evolution of the cozy mystery? Because the cozy is also kind of not as confined as it used to be to just like, no risque scenes, no bad words, no sex at all, not even the illusion of sex, kind of like the Aurora Tea Garden stuff. So yeah, it's
What would Agatha Christie think of all of that?
yeah. Now that's a great question. That's a great question.
No, Angela Lansbury in Cabot Cove Mysteries, those were always very, pure, cozy type.
Yeah. Yeah. We are reaching the end of the hour.
Oh, wow.
It's just flown by. Absolutely. So I don't know if everybody wants to run out and order their king cake and throw a party this weekend, but that sounds like a lot of fun to me. Mary Beth, you want to give us a little preview of the next speaker coming up?
Our next speaker is Marissa Fife. She is also one of our New Orleans Sisters in Crime members. And it's a totally different look because it's vintage, it's running cross country, and it is sheer delight. It's a little more hard-boiled, but it is just a delightful story. And I think you'll find it an interesting change. And it is her first novel, so it's a great debut for her.
Yes, she's delightful. You will love her.
Special lady, very special lady.
Okay, and Colleen, thank you for joining us. And also, especially for this book offer, I will send an email out to our group letting them know that they can download those 3 books for free. That's a great offer.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoy. I hope you all take advantage of it and enjoy it. Thank you for having me. Mary Beth, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate your willingness to participate in my first excursion into moderating the panel.
Thank you, Sally. Sorry.
Oh, great
No,
job, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
It's been great fun. Have a
you.
great day, everybody. Happy Mardi Gras.
Happy
Mardi
Mardi
Gras.
Gras.
Laissez les bon temps rouler.
Let the good times roll.
Yep,
right,
you
baby.
got it, Linda. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.